I did not miss division. Ang sabi, since napakawalan na siya pinagkuwento doon kasi nilabas natin yung balita shortly after that. Dami
kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, kaya sa sinakanan, Magandang umaga po sa atin lahat. Ito po yung fourth in our series of discussions on the issues and concerns from 2022 and beyond. Ang pangalan ko po, I'm Jonathan De La Cruz. Our topic for today is on the finance and economy. Our presenters, of course, Dr. Eli Remolona, who is coming in via Zoom from Kuala Lumpur. He is a visiting professor at the University of Kuala Lumpur. Dr. Remolona is a graduate of the Ateneo de Manila University and took his graduate studies at the Stanford University in the USA. He has been in banking in finance for the past decades. His last position was as the first Filipino executive director for the Bank of International Settlements based in Hong Kong. Of course, we are live on DWIC. Thank you very much to our friends and our co-anchor in our program Carambola, Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles, and our other co-anchor, and now part of our panel here, Conrad Banal. We have here our panel of reactors from the ALC Media Group, our partner in this webinar activity. For the past three sessions, we have had several experts coming from different segments from different sectors. We had in the first webinar session, we had politics and governance. Our presenter was Professor Clarita Carlos. We had also Dr. Ted Herbosa, former Undersecretary of Health, as the presenter for health and wellness. And of course, last Tuesday, we had Dr. Ray Velasco, former Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, as the presenter for agriculture, agrarian reform, and food security, together with Dr. Vic Brosas. With us now, as part of our panel, is Astro del Castillo is with us, he's a respected stock analyst. Dito po kayo kumuha ng inyong tips kung gusto ninyong lumagaw ang inyong investments. Of course, we have Joyce Cartin, former Deputy Director General of the TESDA and NYC previously. And as I mentioned earlier, kasama po natin, co-anchor natin, kasama natin si Attorney Trixie Cruz Angeles, si paring Conrad Banal, respected editor, also a most multi-awarded editor and a business columnist. Of course, we have another business analyst and columnist, Mr. Lito Gagni, special sections editor of Philippines Graphic and Business Mirror, and Susan, our friend from Filipino Mirror. We have with us also the editor-in-chief of Business Mirror, the best business paper in the country today, Ms. Chuchay Molina Fernandez. And part of our convener group, Joel Paredes and Eric Ines, they're here with us today. So we will begin with, as we request Dr. Remolona to make a short statement regarding the state of Philippine finance and economy, after which we will request our panel of reactors as well as members in the panel who are here right now to make their own reactions and make statements. And of course, muntik ko na makalimutan, part of our panel of reactors is Congressman Isidro Sid Ungab, former chairman of the Committee on Appropriations for two Congresses, former chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, now incoming chairman of the same committee in the next Congress, Congressman Sid Ungab. I'm already telling this because Congressman Ungab was in this Congress, in this particular Congress as now, the only member of Congress under the Hokpong party of the incoming Vice President Sara Duterte. So thank you very much, Congressman Ungab, for joining us today. So we will now request Dr. Eli Remolona to make his presentation. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Jonat. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Alam mo, Jonat, meron tayong dalang good news, meron tayong dalang bad news. Yung good news natin, yung ang ganda ng recovery natin from the pandemic. Ang bad news, marami pa tayong kailangan gawin. Simulan ko muna sa recovery. Dalawang aspect yan. Merong domestic at saka global. Sa domestic, ang ganda ng mga numbers. The latest numbers look so good. Nagugulat nga ako eh. Ang magandang binabantayan dyan, yung tinatawag na manufacturing PMI. Kung lagpas ng 50 yan, maganda na yan. Yung PMI natin noong March, 53. The best in 3 years and the highest in Asia. Part of that, Jonathan, alam mo naman, pent-up demand, di ba? May kasabikan ng economy natin. Kaya maraming bumibili, maraming kumakain sa labas. Pero magandang sign yan, magandang hudyat yan, Jonathan. That means a lot of our entrepreneurial capital survived the pandemic. Hindi namatay sa pandemic. So, buhay na buhay. Pangalawa, alam natin yung mga bangko natin na malusog. They're healthy. They're making loans. They're eager to lend more. Unlike in the previous crisis, dati yung mga bangko, they're part of the problem dati. Ngayon, they're part of the solution. So yan ang good news sa recovery. Pero globally, meron tayong tinatawag na headwinds. Meron tayong mga kaguluhan. 4 na kaguluhan yan, pero pag-uusapan ko lang yung 2. Yung 4 na yan, may gulo sa supply chain, may gulo sa Ukraine, may gulo sa US monetary policy, at may gulo sa China. Medyo explain ko lang yung US monetary policy dahil hindi masyadong na pag-uusapan yan eh. Alam mo yung Fed ngayon, behind the curve, ika nga. It's behind the curve. Nahuli siya sa pagtaas ng interest rate. Parang naiwanan ng LRT. Sa kahahabol sa susunod na trend, baka madapa ang Fed. Maguguluhan ng stock market, maguguluhan ng financial markets. Pwede tayong tamaan yan, Jonat. Yung isa pang kaguluhan, China. Hindi kasi napag-uusapan masyado yung gulo sa China. Ang problema sa China ngayon, napakalaking real estate mess. Parang nagpatayo sila ng 5 BGC, mga building sa BGC na ganun kataas, pero walang dumating na tao, walang tao yung mga buildings nila, ngayon malaking utang yan hindi mabayaran. So that's a big mess. Kaya ang mangyayari diyan, dati China engine of growth yan for Asia and the world. Ngayon hindi na kasi mas malaking problema nila domestically. So hindi na tayo mahihira ng China. Although may opportunity dyan dahil yung supply chain na galing sa China, naghahanap na yung mga manufacturers ng ibang kasali sa supply chain. Sana makasali tayo dyan sa diversified na supply chain. Ngayon sa kailangan natin gawin, tatlo siguro yan. We need, first of all, maintain international credibility. Second, we need some fiscal consolidation. And I think third, we need, I would say, more infrastructure. Alam mo yung international credibility, hindi pwedeng ipitsugin yung, cabinet member, kahit sino presidente, yung cabinet members natin sa finance o sa NEDA, hindi pwedeng pipitsugin. Kasi kung hindi walang credibility, hindi papasok ang investment na kailangan natin. Kailangan natin ng investment ng IT, gano'n. At saka, kung kailangan natin umutang, mahihirapan tayo umutang. Ngayon, nasa BBB pa tayo. Okay na yon, pero sana single A. Yung mga kapitbahay natin, BBB plus sila karamihan. Tapos ang Korea, AA. Sayang na naman tayo maangat natin ang credit rating ng at least single A man lamang. Yung fiscal consolidation, yung total debt natin, 61% of GDP. Okay pa yan, manageable pa yan. Pero pag umabot yan ng 80 to 90%, medyo mahirap na yan. Crisis territory na yung 80 to 90%. So, meron pa tayong, we have room to manage our debt. Ang nangyari kasi, lumaki yung fiscal deficit natin dahil sa pandemic. Hindi naman natin maiiwasan na gumasa sa pandemic. Pero ngayon, sana mawala na yung pandemic, we have to somehow consolidate. Yung foreign debt natin, maliit lang, 25%. Pero kailangan bantayan pa natin yan na hindi lumaki. Lastly, John, at infrastructure, parang kailangan pa natin ng mass transit sa big cities and we need more power infrastructure. Sana makabit-kabit yung mga power grid natin sa Visayas at Mindanao. Tapos kailangan natin ng internet infrastructure. Mahina yung internet natin, Mahinang-mahina. Kailangan pagandahin naman natin yung internet na yan. Saka yung mga project na yan, kailangan sana green tsaka sustainable. Sana paghandaan natin yung climate change. Yan lang muna, Jonat. Maraming salamat.
Dr. Remolona, we will now request our panel of reactors to make their own comments. And then after that, we will have questions from the panel. Astro?
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Doc, magandang umaga po sa inyo dyan. Actually, I agree on the views of Doc. Considering that he has a positive view of what's happening. Totoo naman po, the numbers are getting good, no? Especially ngayon, unti-unti na nagbubukas ang ekonomiya. Nararamdaman ko na ho. Actually, ako na lang sa schedule ko, masyadong, bugbog na, no? Madaming work from home, pero madami na rin nakipag-meet. Hindi lang po yun, no? Ang dami ko na rin tawag at emails sa foreign investors, no? Lalo na foreign. Those who are interested in foreign direct investments. Medyo overwhelmed na ako sa email and mga meetings and dahil po sa mga positive signs na nakita na nila, no? There are some concerns lang po, immediate, pero siguro mamaya natin discuss. Pero yung infrastructure spending na ginagawa ng government and initiatives, talagang malaking tulong po yun, no? Pangalawa, yung recent mga amendments dun sa pag-open up ng economy, katulad ng Public Services Act and the other amendments, no? Talagang yan na po yung nag-trigger ng more interest sa foreign investors, no? Hopefully, sabi ko nga po kanina dun sa programa, parang hindi nila masyadong concern yung election. Wala dun sa listahan ng questions sila, no? Meron, pero very minor yung questions, no? I think they're more focused on the opportunities. They're more focused on ang concerns nila, yung bureaucracy, no? Mabilis ba once na mag-apply kami? How is it? So I had to assure them that ease of doing business has been approved, and we're getting there, no? So natuwa naman sila, no? So lahat ng mga tanong nila madali nating nasasagot, no? Unlike before, no? Dahil may solution na no? Bangko Sentral of the Philippines continues to be lauded by international organizations on how they manage. Hopefully they will be ahead of the curve, no? Isa yun sa mga concerns natin, yung interest rates, lalo ng US. They'll be moving it up, no? They'll be adjusting. How will BSP react? Will be magiging ahead of the curve ba sila or behind, no? But again, we're confident naman that they can manage, no? Considering that madami namang options hindi lang naman pag-increase ng interest rates. And then I think gusto ko lang namang i-highlight na concerns on our side would be yung budget deficit na harapin ng next administration, no? It's a reality, no? Hindi naman fault ng current administration all governments are experiencing it now, no? The so-called deficit kasi nag-overspend tayo no? And the revenues are not really coming in as expected because of the recent COVID pandemic. So yun ang kailangan tutukan ng next administration, and sana as cooperative rin yung magiging members ng Congress, no, na mabilisin umaksyon sa mga socio-economic bills na kailangan natin, no. And then of course yung sa pangaharapin pa rin ng next administration would be gusto ko rin i-highlight would be yung COVID problem pa rin, no. Hindi pa po tapos yung gera sa COVID, no. May mga countries pa rin na nakaka-experience ng spike and surge, no, na talagang nagkakaroon na ng epekto sa kanilang ekonomiya. Ang gusto kong i-highlight dyan would be China. Yung Shanghai nag-lockdown, no? So, alam naman natin, yan po rin ang source ng ating mga finished products, mga imports, ang laki ng import natin sa kanila. Yung supply chain na problema na po before, problema lalo ngayon, no? Affected the whole world, not only us, no? So expect prices to really be pressured pa rin, no? Because of that, not only because of oil. And then of course the geopolitics, which is Ukraine, no? Definitely it has hit us. It will continue to hit everyone, even though now we're far from Europe. The impact to the ripple effect of the higher oil prices and the other commodities, no, na manufacture ng Ukraine and ng Russia, like wheat, no? Ka-discussion ko na rin po yung ibang ekonomista sa ibang bansa. Ang isang forum na na-attendan ko, talagang concerned na rin sila about food security, no? Because of the impact nung wheat na pinuproduce ng both countries, Ukraine and Russia, no? Tatamaan ng Middle East, Pag tinamaan ng Middle East, alam nyo naman yan, yung ripple effect rin yan, tatamaan din tayo. So, and then of course, even before Ukraine happened, no, nakita na po namin yung red flag ng inflation, no, na dahil nga ho sa pagbubukas ng ekonomiya, yung revenge spending, nakikita na natin, the so-called revenge spending, is putting pressure dun sa mga prices, and then kasama pa dyan yung oil. Ewan ko lang si Manong Jonathan kung biktima ka ng revenge spending ng wife nyo or yung mga wife nyo, no? So, it's good for the economy, pero kailangan i-manage pa rin po kasi pag masyadong madaming demand, malakas yung demand, alam niyo naman, may pressure yan, Manong, sa presyo po, no? So, yan po yung mga nakikita natin, no? Yung inflation as a result of oil, no? Oil prices in the world market. And then yung pagkain. Yan po yung haharapin rin ng next administration na tingin naman natin kaya hong paghandaan. Lalo na medyo experience na rin naman yung mga leading sa national, no, sa national post, sa Senate and sa Congress. Sana ma-address po ito. Yung pagkain po kasi natin, tingin namin ito yung priority rin talaga for the next 12 months ng new administration. Kasi po lahat ini-import na natin. Rice, chicken, pork, sugar, and then lately, di ba po, isda. Kahit bihira ako kumain ng isda, no? So, kailangan po talaga tutukan to, no? So, yun lang yung mga immediate concerns that I think eventually ito rin po yung magiging priorities. And I agree with Dr. Imbrona na maganda yung view niya, no? We're optimistic also. We're cautiously optimistic, and we're confident na lalo na po pag nagsama-sama tayo mga Filipino after elections, no? Tingin ho natin mas mapapabilis natin yung pag-angat natin, pag-unlad natin. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Astro. Before we ask our next reactor to make his comments, gusto lang ho natin paalam na we are live over DWIC up to 11 o'clock. And of course, we are also live on Facebook and YouTube. Now we will request my co-anchor and respected editor, business analyst, and golfer, Parin Conrad Banal.
Thank you, Parin Jonat. Kulang yung description po eh. Walang good looking eh. Yan ang kulang. Pero I forgive you. Alam ko natataranta ka pag ganitong panahon eh. I really agree with both of the previous speakers. Yung kanilang pananaw sa short term, kumbaga after COVID scenario ng ating economy. And we can see that in almost all the analysis of international economic organization. You have the ADB, you have the World Bank, you have all the banks saying that the economy is well on its way to recovery. That's the general consensus. Okay? And then, of course, we need to do more in order to realize a continuous growth of the GDP, they say. But my question here now is this, that I want to throw to our panel and to our speaker. What kind of growth in GDP are we going to have? What will fuel it? The way I look at it, it's always consumption. It's government spending and personal consumption, household consumption. And I don't think that's a good way to restart the economy. What is lacking here, to my mind, is a really solid national strategy on the economy. And that has been lacking for the past 20, 30 years. What is our national strategy? The national strategy, it seems to me, is that we continue having trade deficits, we import all sorts of things, And how do we pay for that? We pay for that through invisibles, meaning what we earn in services, meaning tourism, OFW remittances, and all of that. In terms of goods, we simply import. And this was brought about, to me, by the policy of import liberalization. They were saying at that time, when we instituted import liberalization, that it will strengthen our local industries. Meaning, the companies will now have to face up to competition, and therefore, they will shape up. What was not said at that time was that the import liberalization policy, which was the main strategy, economic strategy at that time, was meant to appease the mob. Meaning, to make goods available to the consumers at a lower price, because locally produced goods were thought to be expensive. Although we never analyzed what was causing the high cost of locally produced goods. You had all sorts of things. You can say corruption and power rates and everything, okay? So we have now a huge growing trade deficit. It was more than $40 billion last year. That was compared to $25 billion in 2020. An increase of $20 billion just in 1 year. This is trade deficit. And that is the result of our reliance on consumption for economic growth. Meaning government spendings and personal expenditures. Now, and our policy, let's say, now we have a department for migrant workers. Of course, I realize that we're only trying to make life easier for our OFWs. But the subliminal message there is that we are really encouraging people to go out and work there. To me, that's not a national strategy for economic growth. To me, that is just para magkaroon lang ng pangtapal ng butas. OFW encouraging people to go out and work there is not a national strategy. National strategy means we have to develop what we have here. Our natural resources, for example, our minerals that we have here, we have to develop that and make use of it. For example, a very obvious example here is, this is now the time of renewable energy. And they are saying all these electric cars will need billions upon billions of investment in batteries. What do we use for batteries? Nickel, copper. We have that. We have the second biggest proven copper deposit in the world. And these are ours underground. What is our national strategy, let's say, when it comes to using our God-given resources? There is none. It's all ad hoc, anti-mining, so you produce a policy to appease the anti-miners and things like that. It should be a long-term national strategy. And I think this is about time. This is now the time when we are at the cusp of a huge potential for economic growth. They're saying our, we are at that soft spot of economic level that we can actually take advantage of the growing population, the level of sophistication in our finance, in our democracy, in our justice system. We are at the right spot, the soft spot. If we can form a national strategy and how to harness all our resources, I think that should be the first step of the next administration. It is well and good that we are on the way to recovery from the COVID case. But to me, I am thankful for that. But it seems that we needed something more beyond the recovery that we're looking at, that we're looking forward to after the pandemic. That's all for now. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Maraming salamat, Paring Conrad. Before we request our other reactors and the panel to make their own statements, we will request Dr. Remolona to just answer or at least make some reactions to what have been discussed by Astro and Conrad. Dr. Remolona, please. Anong tingin mo doon, Doc? Doon sa mga statements that have been made by Astro del Castillo, our stock analyst and respected investment consultant, and Paring Conrad Banal, our respected editor and golfer.
Dadagdagan ko lang yung mga sinabi nila, John. At, narinig niyo ako, no? Yung sinabi ni Astro na problema natin sa inflation, mas malaki problema actually ng US. Inflation natin mababa pa eh. Although sabi ng BSP, lalagpas ng 4 this year. Pero kaya-kaya pa rin ng, hindi pa tayo behind the curve. Yun ang tingin ko. Pwede pang humabol. Yung Fed ang talagang behind the curve. Pero problema natin yon, yung Fed na behind the curve. Kasi magkakagulo eh. In the effort of the Fed to catch up, mabibigla yung mga gagawin nila. Masyadong bigla. I can say this because I was at the Fed for 14 years and I know how they look at things. So sa akin yun ang problema. Yung US monetary policy ang problema. More than domestic monetary policy. Yung sinabi naman ni Conrad na I'm very sympathetic with the issue of what Conrad raised. Maganda talaga kung sana yung growth natin inclusive, no, na nagkakaroon tayo ng trabaho sa Pilipinas, hindi naghahanap ng magandang trabaho abroad ang mga kababayan natin. Sana mabigyan natin ng mas maganda pang trabaho dito locally, yung inclusive na growth. Pero ang ginagawa dyan, ang investment natin at saka yung foreign investment natin, dapat labor-intensive na industries. Yung talagang nag-hire ng tao. Sa ngayon, yung investment na yan napunta sa China. Yung mga investment na yan, yung mga labor-intensive na investment na yan, sa China napunta. Pero ngayon, may opportunity tayo dahil nagkakaproblema sila sa supply chain sa China. So ngayon, ng mga investor at saka manufacturer, naghahanap ng ibang lugar para mag-invest ng mga ganyang labor-intensive na industries. Sana tayo yun. Sana handa tayo. Sana gaya nga ng sinabi ni Astro, sana masabi natin na yung ease of doing business dito sa Pilipinas, maganda, madali. Yun ang tingin ko dyan. Yung investment natin dapat inclusive, labor-intensive, tsaka dapat sustainable. Pwede naman magka-trade deficit tayo ng konti kung magandang investment natin. So, para yung investment natin, makakabayad tayo doon sa utangin natin para sa trade deficit. Yun naman ang strategy of growth ng mga gaya ng Korea, gaya ng China. Yun lang, Jonathan.
Thank you, Dr. Eli Remolona. Yeah, we will request, by the way, our other reactor is Terry Tuason, the president of the PAPLU, and also the chairman of the Lakas Manggagawa Labor Center. So we will ask him to make a few statements regarding the impact of all of these things, yung mga kailangan na gagawin natin in order to recover and in order to move forward pagdating sa labor? Ano expectations naman ng workers pagdating dito? Terry. Huwag mong masyadong pinapakita na Bongbong Marcos ang dating mo.
Halata ba?
Hello, hello.
Nakamas eh.
Kami sa hanay ng manggagawa, parang nakikita namin na yung pag-unlad ng ating Pilipinas ay hindi nakakasama yung pag-unlad o yung pagtaas ng ating sweldo ng manggagawa. Pangalawa, yung ating mga industriya, yung manufacturing, saka yung mga labor-intensive company, wala na rito eh. Nawala na sila. Hindi katulad nung panahon mga 70s, ang gobyerno tinutulungan yung mga investor na lalo na sa textile, sa garment, nagiging integrated yung mga garment at saka textile industry. Pero nung bandang 78, nawala na yung mga pagawaan dito eh. Nawala yung steel, nawala yung bibihira yung electronic, nawala na yung mga manufacturing sector. Tapos nung pumasok ang EDSA Revolution, ang nangyari pa sa manggagawa, nagkaroon ng mga regional wages board. Yung mga sweldo ng manggagawa, ayon doon sa mga tinatakda ng regional wage. Hindi katulad panahon ni Marcos, parang iisa lang ang minimum wage law. No? Ano ba ang nagiging problema ng manggagawa? Halimbawa sa probinsya, napakataas din ng mga bilihin doon pero mababa ang minimum wage. Dito sa Metro Manila, mataas nga ang minimum wage, mataas din naman ang halaga ng cost of living. Kaya ang pag-unlad ng manggagawa, kung ang manggagawa ay may trabaho, lahat ng manggagawa may trabaho, sila yung bibili nung tataas yung Ang problema, parang ang nangyari sa amin, ang karamihang ngayon ay service sector. Service sector. Wala na yung manufacturing. At kaya ang mga manggagawa ngayon sa atin, nasa service sector, maalis ng bansa, ang daming natayong hotel ngayon eh. Pero ang kalakaran ngayon ay endo-endo ang lumalabas. Kaya yung pag-asenso ng manggagawa, wala eh. Walang nangyayari. Yung kanilang lakas paggawa ay hindi nasuswelduhan ng tama. Ganun lang po.
Maraming salamat, Terry. Susundan ka ni Joe Escartin, na dating Deputy Director General ng TESDA ng NMYC. Joe.
Maraming salamat kong Jonat. Susundan ko na lang yung sinabi ni Kateri. At sapagkat natutuwa rin naman tayo na narinig natin yung sinabi kanina ni Dr. Rimolona na yung good news is ang PMI natin is about 53%. At sinabi na rin ni Conrad kanina at saka ni Astro na kailangan diinan yung ating pag-ugwad o pag-unlad ng ating kinomiya. At na-mention kanina ni Dr. Rimolona yung sinasabi inclusivity. Sapagkat ito ay napaka-elusive na economic goal ito. Matagal na itong dinidiinan ng ating gobyerno at hindi pa rin aabot. At sa amin pananaw, lalo na sa hanay nito mga manggagawa, nakikita namin na at this stage, sinasabi ng Philippine Statistical Office na 3 million ang walang trabaho, pero sinasabi ng SWS last year na 13 billion ang sa kanilang estimate. At mga around 6.4% ang underemployed. So sa madaling sabi, hindi talaga pwede maabot yung sinasabi natin inclusive growth kung walang trabaho ang manggagawa. At yan ay gusto namin diinan sa hanay ng manggagawa na sana ang gobyerno natin, sa susunod na gobyerno, ang bigyan diin ay yung pagbigay ng hanap buhay, trabaho, to create and promote jobs. At tinatanaw namin sa hanay ng manggagawa, na ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas sana ay maging working nation. Kung saan lahat na gusto magtrabaho, magkaroon ng trabaho, and in fact, makes employment as economic right. Para naman, lahat ng mga variables ng kanilang planning ay dapat nakatuon doon sa pagbigay ng trabaho, pag-generate ng jobs. Unfortunately, gaya maski na kanina, sinasabi na nag-improve na yung ating PMI, the tradable sector ng ating ekonomiya ay hindi nabigyan ng sapat na diin ng ating mga policy makers. Yung non-tradable service sector ay kumpleto na ang suporta. Pero napabayaan yung manufacturing, agriculture, mining, and forest sector kung saan dito natin sana makuha yung mga pangailangan natin na magtrabaho ang mga ating mamamayan. In fact, while our export or manufacturing is improving, according to some reports, only 10% of the firms in the Philippines are exporters. So madaling sabi, puro pasok ang mga ibang import natin na goods at wala tayong nalalabas. Kaya sinasabi ni Conrad kanina, malaki ang trade deficit. At ito ay matagal na rin na issue ito in fact. Dahil dito sa kakulangan ng trabaho, napipilitan ang atin mga manggagawa lumabas. Gaya ng sinasabi ni Conrad, ito ay hindi tamang polisiya. Dapat ang paghanap buhay o pagtrabaho sa labas ng bansa ay is a matter of choice, not a matter of necessity. At isa pa rito na dapat tingnan natin, bakit sobra ang importation natin? Sapagkat meron natang culprit dito yung atin foreign exchange rate. Kaya gusto ko ito itanong kay Dr. Rimuluna, kung at the current level ba ay competitive na tayo because by having an overvalued peso, we tend to subsidize jobs abroad. We don't only export now workers, we export job by too much importation. Yan ang dapat tingin ko titingnan at diinan ng ating mga policy makers.
Thank you, Joe. Before we ask the panel to ask their own questions, we will have to request Congressman Sid Ungab, the incoming chairman of the Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives, how these things will impact on our own budget, the deficit, and the manner by which the budget will be worked out for the next administration. I understand that he has made his own calculations, and we will request him to make his statement on the situation as far as the budget, the Philippine budgetary situation is concerned, and the use of the budget, especially since we are expecting the influx of funding to local government units with the Supreme Court ruling on the Garcia Mandanas law. Congressman.
Walang sound. Walang audio.
Thank you. Am I maririnig na?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yes? Okay. Thank you. Good morning to our resource speaker. Good morning to our expert panelists. First of all, my short reaction, Kong Junat, sa ating topic this morning. Well, first for the good news, empirical records will show that during election year, umaakyat talaga yung ating ekonomiya. No? Election spending helps our economy. Then, of course, if there's a new admin coming in, usually fresh hopes, fresh beginnings, and new investments coming in. And of course, I agree with all the speakers. The situation abroad is not too rosy. Ukraine-Russia war, the sanctions, and the interest rates in the US. So we have to closely look at that. And I agree with our resource speaker, fiscal consolidation. And it's high time that we invest intensively in agriculture. Too much importation and to the detriment of our local farmers. High time that we ensure food security for our country by using our own resources, using our talents, and ang dami ng lawak ng lupa, talents natin, farmers and fisher folks. Then last but not least, high time for us for the next administration to revisit the Constitution, look at the possible amendments for economy, for politics, and government structure. Hopefully, constitutional convention or a constitutional commission would help do the job. As to kung ano yung nasabi kanina ni Kong Jonat about my comments on the budget, yes, we are really running on a high budget deficit. Hopefully, that could be addressed. Yes, I agree na medyo malayo pa tayo sa red flag yan. 61% or 60% budget deficit is not yet that bad, but if possible, babaan pa natin. Look at other venues or possible sources of financing, review the budget very well, because normal, you see some excess funds if you really look and study the budget one by one, page by page. So marami ka talagang makikita. So thank you, Kong Jonat. Thank you to our resource speaker. So yun lang po, medyo short comment lang.
Maraming salamat, Congressman Sid Ungab. As I said, the incoming chairman of the Committee on Appropriations in the next Congress. So we will now make available to our panel their own questions to the resource person as well as the reactors. So, Chuchay, would you like to ask the first question?
Kay Dr. Remolona po. You said that the numbers are good, but we face real headwinds. How real is the risk that a surge in COVID cases in May or June, as some health experts now are warning? How real is the risk that such could derail our momentum for recovery? And what can be done to blunt the impact of such challenge?
Dr. Remolona.
Wala akong expertise dyan sa COVID. Sana wala na, sana mawala na. Pero kung then it's a whole new ballgame. Pero what we see around the world is cases are falling, deaths are falling, and vaccinations seem to be working. So I'm crossing my fingers that that's a trend rather than a temporary dip. Sana tuloy-tuloy nang mawala. Yun lang masasabi ko. Hindi ko alam talaga kung ano mangyayari dyan.
Is there a way we can avoid, heavily debt-driven response to another surge? I mean, what we did in the first 2 years of the pandemic was understandable. We had to respond quickly to save lives. But if we have another one, do you think there's a way that the government can avoid taking a very debt-driven approach to the COVID response?
Ang nangyari, ang pinakamalakas na naggumastos sa fiscal policy were actually the more developed countries, the US and Europe. Grabe ang nila, much more than ours. We did spend 3 trillion pesos yata ang gastos natin. Pero it's modest compared with what other countries have done. So I think we were disciplined in our approach. In terms of COVID, the experience of 2018, yung flu pandemic, it lasted for 3 years. Tapos nawala. Wala silang vaccine noon. They didn't understand what was going on. Now, may 2 years na tayo, may vaccine tayo, sana hanggang 2 years lang. Sana, ang gagastusin natin ngayon, di ba, vaccine na. Yung pagandahin pa yung mga vaccine na meron tayo. But the fiscal impact doesn't look so bad at this stage.
Chucha, dito,
I would want to react on Dr. Remolona and that of Astro Castillo. Nakasama ko matagal itong si Conrad sa bit sa banking, lalo sa stock market. Actually, we invested pa sa isang stocks kumalabog eh. Diba? Pero anyway, number one, I would want to ask Dr. Remolona questions on the central banking aspect. I remember that the central bank, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, came up with a policy whereby it nudged the single borrower's limit from 20% of loanable funds of a bank to 25%. That's a 25% increase. Now, what happened? When you are looking at big businessmen, big players who were having problems with their own businesses, especially those who made significant purchases, which they were not able to, pay for. And then here comes Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas coming up with that policy. Of course, there was a good thing about what the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has done on the MSMEs when it allowed lendings to micro, small, and medium enterprises to become part of the reserve requirement that is asked for banks. Kung ang bangko may pinautang ng mga micro, small, and medium enterprises, it becomes part of the reserve. Kasi remember, every 100 pesos, meron kang 20 now, 12, 14, 16 pesos. Parang ganun eh. Now, yun po yung tanong ko, what will happen? And then number two, Dr. Remolona seemed to have, glossed over the fact that the peso's value is going down against that of the dollar. From 50, it's now 52. Actually, 52.15 pa nga, nagkaroon ng trade ng 52.15 3 days ago. And investment analysts like Astro del Castillo look at it as 54. At 54, 8%, mataas yan. Even the government, the deficit may increase because with that, with the lower value of the peso vis-a-vis the dollar, we are talking of last February a 65 billion peso increment in our government debts. Because we issued panda loans, we had samurai bonds, mga green bonds pa. Yun po yung tanong ko kay Dr. Remolona. And then on to Astro Castillo sa stocks. Alam mo, ang daming problema sa Philippine Stock Exchange ngayon. And I think Astro del Castillo is aware of that. We are talking of one issue, Abra Mining. Abra Mining sold unregistered shares of stock. And yet what happened? The Philippine Stock Exchange has done nothing. Here comes the president of the Philippine Stock Exchange saying they're coming up with a white knight. Imagine white knight nagbenta nga ng, that's criminal. Huh? You sell shares that are not registered. I'm not saying this because I bought. No. I'm saying this because other friends bought. They have Abra Mining shares. Yan. And then, anong mangyayari? And then, look at that. There is an IPO, yung Medlines. Kumalabog below IPO, and yet there is what you call yung stabilization fund. Ba't pinabayaan bumagsak below IPO? Kaya nasasaktan yung mga investors ng kaibigan ko na bumibili, di ba? Di ba, Astro? Si Astro del Castillo, magaling yan sa stocks eh. Yung his painting, the incremental rise in his painting collection is a function of his winnings in the stock market. Now, balik naman kay nagkukwento kami ni Conrad kanina. Sabi niya, yung import liberalization. Alam nyo, 40 years ago, ang Pilipinas meron tinatawag na infant industry concept. Yung infant industry, yung maliit pa lang yung kumpanya, huwag kang import, huwag mong lagyan ng countervailing, tulungan mo. Kaso, matanda na, infant pa rin. O, kaya ganun. Yan. Kasi infant industry. Kaya pinapabayaan nila na makakuha ng yung lumago, yung kanilang negosyo kahit na mas mura sa Anyway, yan. Yan lang ang I hope may masagot lalo yung sa Abra Mining, unregistered shares. Ang dami pa. Tapos yung mesa, yung halimbawa, yung solar, yung kanilang stock rights. Anyway, Dr. Remolona.
Thank you. Thank you, Parang Lito. Doc, can you please react to the statements of our friend and veteran stock investor, Lito Gagni? He invested in Abra Mining actually. May dami. Doc.
Ang masasabi ko dyan sa mga sinabi ni Lito, yung reserve requirement, yung pagbaba ng reserve requirement, okay ako dyan. I like that. We have had one of the highest reserve requirements in the world. So sa Asia, tayo ang pinamataas ngayon. So it's except for China, I think. So tama yung ginagawa ng BSP na ibaba yung reserve requirement. Hindi nakakatulong yung reserve requirement. Yung paghina ng peso, natural yan dahil nagtaas ang Fed eh. Hindi naman tayo nagtaas sa Pilipinas. Yung mga utang na natin, hindi naman ma-affect yan kasi ang issuer, ang binabayaran niya yung coupon, hindi yung bagong interest rate. Ang matatalo dyan, yung mga investor, yung bumili ng mga bonds na yan, medyo matatalo sila. Dahil sa pagtaas ng interest rate, yung value ng bonds bumababa. Pero kung utang tayo ulit, kung marami pa tayong utang ulit, mas mataas na yung coupon na babayaran natin. So, ganun talaga yan. Ganun talaga yan. I also agree with the complaint about the infant industry. Na tumanda na, infant pa rin. Dapat talaga may time limit yan at dapat pag-aralan gaano katagal yung time limit para sa infant industries. Kung ibabalik natin yung infant industry argument, which I would favor, tama, we have to do it in the right way, but in general, I would favor the return of the infant industry policy. Yun lang, salamat.
Astro, would you like to respond to Lito's statements about the stock market?
Thank you, Kong John. Manong Lito, regarding your Abra, tama po, no? But I have to defer to the wisdom of PSE. Alam mo naman, kaibigan, mga amo rin natin yun in a sense that sila yung governing body talaga. But there are competent individuals who also express their the same concern, no? Even though na it's been dragging, nagkaroon na ng call for review that will affect not only AR but also yung concern nyo sa Medlines and other IPOs, and hindi lang IPOs pating secondary offering, no? Katulad nung isang secondary offering na supposedly madami na rin nag-invest but last minute nag-pull out, no? So it shook the financial capital markets rin, no? So ayun, but don't worry, isa po tayo sa nag-express na rin ng concern doon sa concern nyo, and tayo yung isa rin tayo sa pumapalo sa kanila. But I'm sure they will address this in the right time. Yun nga lang, kailangan lang po talaga bilisan. But again, dun sa mga listeners natin, sana po yung mga hindi pa sanay sa investments, hindi lang sa stock market, pati po sa ibang investments, sa property or sa bonds, mutual funds, sana po mas mag-aral pa rin kayo, no? Ito pong dahil po may crisis pa rin, no? madami po nagte-take advantage eh. Nabanggit po natin kanina sa isang programa. Sana po wag kayo mabiktima ng mga scams, no? Napansin po namin every time na may crisis, dumadami yung mga scammers, no? Nagbibigay ng supposedly magandang return, mga 20% in a week, no? 30%. It's really too good to be true. So sana po, instead of spending time sa social media, you spend time learning, no? Madami na pong libreng platform na nag-o-offer ng investors education. Lalo na po yung mga taga-bangko. Instead na makichismis kayo sa mga bankero, no? Hindi naman kayo ipapahiya niyan eh. And kung gusto nyo, together with Manong Lito, kausapin nyo rin yung mga taga-Philippine Stock Exchange para mabigyan rin kayo ng tip and guidelines on how to invest. Let me also emphasize, I'm sure most of you will agree that investing in the stock market also is still a better investment considering it gives you a higher rate of return, though medyo mataas ng kaunti yung risk, and usually nakakatalo talaga sa inflation. So, Manong Lito, sana nasagot ko yung tanong mo kahit hindi specific, no? hindi completely addressed, but definitely pupukpukin po natin yan.
Thank you, Astro. Parang Conrad would like to make a...
Gusto ko lang hulinawin. Yung sinasabi ni Lito, nung nag-invest kami dalawa sa stock market at natalo kami, kasi sinunod ko yung advice niya. But when it comes to the stock market, ang isang obserbasyon ko ho dyan, ang PSE is ridden with corruption. And that's a fact in the stock market. That's being swept under the rug. Hindi ho pinag-uusapan yan. Ang mga opisyal ng PSE, hindi mag-a-approve yan ng listing kung hindi sila magkakaroon ng alokasyon. That is a fact in the stock market that's being swept under the rug. Okay? Na kailangan hong i-reform yan. Kailangan na matapang-tapang na tao sa SE. Bagay, may sariling self-policing ang PSE. So hindi ang SEC hindi nila magagawa. But it's about time. Kasi dahil sa ganyang kustumbre at kultura sa PSE, sa stock market, naapektuhan ang listing. Okay? Ang ating stock market napakanipis. Iilan lang ho ang listed companies. Ikumpara mo sa Bangkok, sa Thailand, ang daming listed companies. Ikumpara mo ngayon yung volume ng stock market sa Thailand at saka sa Pilipinas, napakalayo. Why? Kasi nga konti ang listed companies. Bakit konti ang listed companies? Dahil sa corruption sa PSE. Yan po ang totoong kwento dyan. Okay. Ngayon, we need reforms here. Okay? Kailangan po natin ng reforms dito. Kamukha nung ginawa ng reforms ng CREATE. Binanggit kanina ni Lito, yung infant industry. Well, that problem has been addressed by the CREATE, or CREATE tried to address that problem. Okay, infant industry. Pero mas mahalaga ho rito kasi pag-aralan natin kung ano ba yung mga major industries na dapat nating itayo. Halimbawa, yun yung sinasabi ko national strategy. Halimbawa, ang isang economy hindi ho magi-industrialize yan kung walang steel industry. Wala tayo niyan. For the longest time, wala tayo. Steel industry is always a necessity for industrialization. Wala ho tayo niyan. Metal industry, napakadami nating minerals. What do? We export them as raw ore. So anong strategy natin dyan? Wala tayo. When it comes to agriculture, what's our strategy? Importation? Here and there, we have some policies. But these policies do not count for a well thought of national strategy. Tourism, may strategy ba tayo? What kind of tourists do we attract? Yun ho mga pichi-pichi na galing sa Japan and Korea. Yan ang mga... We need the big spenders. Di ba? Hindi po yung mga magkakasino lang tapos uwi na, hindi ganun. We need a tourism program that's really na angkop sa ating mga pangangailangan or sa ating available na tourism spots. Okay? Yun muna kasi medyo na-high blood ako eh. Mamaya na yung iba.
Are there any more? Si Chu Chay. Kasi di daw siya investor dyan sa Abra Mining Lito. Yes.
Naumpisahan na ni Conrad naman yung mga strategic industries na wala tayo naman. Ano. So you said lately you have been at the receiving end of a frenzy of email inquiries from foreign investors, which is good. Now, given that kind of high enthusiasm and our own crying need for a sustainable national strategy for growth, what areas can we highlight to the foreign investors so we can ride the tide of their enthusiasm for, especially after this series of liberalization measures and reforms?
Well, basically, we're as I agree with my fellow panelists and resource person, Dr. Remolona. Well, hopefully, ang wish list talaga natin, they focus on manufacturing, no? They boost our industries. But yung mga investment queries that I've been receiving was it's really more of parang retail, telcos, yung mga more on the not really on the manufacturing side, no, but yes, mga utilities, no. And but madami pa namang queries po and they're looking at other industries like agriculture and energy, no. Actually, yung pinakamadami kong queries is energy, no. Energies. Yeah, madami sa energies, and some are also in mining and oil, no. So nabuhay po ulit yung interest, and lalo na I think the recent yung amendments doon sa pag-open up sa foreign investments. So I also support the view of Kong Ungab na it's about sana timing rin yung yung this year or next year, no, yung sa new administration, that we look at the revising the constitution, no. Ang bias namin syempre towards the economy, but I guess ang dami ring issues about governance, no, reforms. So we support also that view. But on your question po, yun yung mga na-encounter kong queries. Ang dami, halos sa every day. Actually, I'm being invited nga to go to the other countries to make a presentation, to pitch for the Philippines. Pakisama ko si Manong Lito at si Manong Conrad. Wag lang niya sasabihin ulit yung sa Philippine Stock Exchange. Dadala ko. Isusulat ko na lang. I hope I answered your query.
Lumalabas dito sa ating discussion sa ngayon that number one, the recovery, the platform for recovery of the country is in good standing. We are about to undertake moving forward, resting on the good fundamentals of the economy. But there are a lot of challenges that need to be resolved, and that is the reason why we need to come out with as Conrad mentioned and Dr. Remolona mentioned, we need to come out not only with the short-term arrangements that need to be worked out by the incoming administration, but a serious and sustainable national strategy for economic recovery that includes our strategy for what we call the commanding heights of the economy that can be worked out, that can provide jobs, that can provide social benefits for our people, and that can provide the necessary impetus for our competitiveness in the global market. So I understand from Dr. Remolona that he has been asked by certain bankers as well as finance people in his contacts, among his contacts in the international banking system. Their main concern right now is the volatility of the financial markets. So if you can just give us an idea, is this just about the problem in the U.S. Fed policy, or are we talking about the problem of, for example, the impact of the sanctions on Russia and the impact of the other possible downgrading of the interest rates, and also the impact of the stabilization of the oil markets? So, Doc, can you just give us some feedback or some view regarding your discussions with your colleagues in the international finance community on these issues and their impact on our recovery?
Salamat, Jonat. Konti lang naman ang masasabi ko. Ang Fed, sinabi ko na behind the curve. Hindi lang ako nagsasabi niyan. Yung mga dati kong colleagues sa Fed, yun din ang sinasabi nila. So parang medyo nawalan ng loob yung FOMC, yung Federal Open Market Committee, na magtaas nung January pa sana o last year pa sana. They were hoping that the supply chain problems will go away, the prices will go down again, but it didn't happen. So in the effort to catch up, yung gaya na sinabi ko, maghahabol ang Fed ngayon, pwede silang madapa sa kahabol ng monetary policy. Tatamaan tayo niyan kasi lalong tataas ang interest rate nila. Mapipilitan rin tayong magtaas para hindi masyado ma-destabilize ang peso, halimbawa. Kung behind the curve ang Fed, lalo na ang ECB, ang European Central Bank sa Europe. So problema din 'yan, pero they're more worried about other things than monetary policy. But their problems will inevitably catch up with us. So we have to watch the international bond markets.
Pero hindi mo bibigyan ng sanda.
Yun lang, Jonat.
Ng Russia and China to have their own currencies considered as competing with the dollar for purposes of banking and other. Is it good or bad? Yung sinasabi ng Russia ngayon, hindi, magbayad kayo ng rubles. O kaya in China, they're trying to come out with a yuan-based exchange of foreign exchange. Ano ba yan? Anong impact niyan sa atin?
Matagal nang matagal nang tinutulak yan, lalo ng China. Dati Japan ang tutulak yan, magkaroon ng Asian currency. Tapos they try to internationalize renminbi. Pero ang dollar lalo pang dumami yung transactions in the dollar. In the foreign exchange market, 80% of all transactions involve dollar. So, hindi pa rin humihina ang dollar. Yung sinasabi when reports of my death are greatly exaggerated tungkol sa dollar. Lalo na ngayon sa SWIFT, ang Russia, wala sa SWIFT. Ibig sabihin niya, dollars na talaga.
Dr. Remolona, may tanong lang ho kasi ako. Yan bang the ability of a currency like the dollar, or in the case of China, the renminbi, yun ho bang acceptability niya as an international currency has something to do with the political sphere of influence of the nation issuing the currency? Halimbawa, ang US is the policeman of the world, and therefore its currency is the international currency.
Oh, merong, siyempre, merong importante yung political influence of the country. But the main factor that makes the dollar so dominant is the size of the U.S. financial market. Sinasabi mo nga, Conrad, na manipis ang stock market. US stock market naman napakakapal. Hindi lang stock market, pati yung bond market napakakapal naman. Kaya yun ang talagang driving factor. Kasi ang transactions internationally hindi masyadong goods. Talagang financial ang mga transactions nationally. Kaya dollar, nagiging dominant. Yun lang.
Lito. Doc.
Yeah, is it possible for a barter trade to ensue? Let's say the Philippines buy the discounted Russian oil. Ang ipangbabayad natin ay copper. So, hindi siya naging dollar. It is not denominated in dollars. Is that possible? Will we be...
Parang barter.
Barter. Will we be subject to sanction, if ever? Kasi barter di ba?
Kahit naman barter, covered yan ng sanctions.
Trade.
Trade. I see.
Napakahirap yan. Yun nga lang wala ka sa SWIFT, napakahirap na. Yung babalik ka sa fax machine para napakahirap yan.
Email.
Mabigat. Ito si Joel Paredes, our in-house communist member of the Aparachik. Will now ask the question.
Sabi nga ni Kong Jonah, dapat marinig mo to si Dr. Remolona. Kaya lang, sabi ko nga
Microphone. Sabi ko, pakinggan mo si Dr. Remolona kasi hindi mo naririnig yan sa ibang mga economist natin.
Ito sabi. Pero ngayon, sabi ko John, dapat sa Pilipinas siya. Di ba? Ngayon, pabalikin sa Pilipinas to. One, kasi, kaya gusto ko itanong to, the main concern, one, the import dalawa yan, the import liberalization. How do we address really this problem? Kasi naalala ko, kami na, Conrad, nagko-cover kami, reporter kami noon. Si Winnie Monsod,
Winnie Monsod, yes.
Same promises, Ngayon, I think that is also one of the problems now na bakit nagkakaroon ng problema sa politika. But you can answer it, siyempre, not as a politician. And ikalawa relasyon nitong import liberalization na to at sabi lang, mapabuti ang medyo makataong pag-unlad, naalala nyo ito. Kaya nga, nilip pa yung education cap. Tapos, nasagot nyo yung at least very optimistic kayo sa gusto ng tao, yung jobs, livelihood, prices. Although, yung sweldo, hindi pa talaga nakikita. Ano naman ang tingin nyo, paano ma-address yung import liberalization kasama na yung konting makataong pag-unlad, yung social development sa Human Development Index. Ang kaunlaran kasi ngayon, pag-unlad, hindi na titignan natin sa ganda ng kinikita ng bayan, di ba? Kasi yun ang gusto nyo mga ekonomista siyempre sa health. Edukasyon, lalo na ngayon nagkaroon ng COVID. Ngayon, as an economist, as one who has been seen itong perspektibong global, yung as a Filipino, na nakita nyo na yung gawain sa lahat, ano pong solusyon nyo dito para sa bayan natin?
Naghang sa tanong mo, pare.
Naghang. Hindi. Naghang. Doc.
Ba ang
Doc.
tinatanong?
Yung import
Dalawa ho
liberalization.
yan yung import, how could you address that problem now of import liberalization? At ikalawa, paano maging makatao naman ang konti ang pag-unlad natin? Tignan natin yung hindi na lang sa kita, kundi pati sa social development natin, human development index natin, paano natin mapataas? Ay, yung nga pala, kalimutan ko, yung informal settlers natin, di ba? Hindi ho na, laging nangangako tayo dyan sa informal settlers, yung mga tao, yung mga politiko. Harap ng bahay namin, buong Metro Manila, buong Pilipinas, walang talagang magandang tanawin. Sabi nila, eyesore, nagiging eyesore. But hindi ho nila kasalanan to eh. I think kasalanan pa rin ng sistema natin eh. Yun ang yung existing system. How do you address these concerns? Lalo na kayo yung, from an economist point of view, para hindi na political ang pagtingin dito.
Yung formal settlers, sa akin, importante yung property rights, masunod ang property rights. Pero gaya ng sinabi, hindi naman kasalanan yun. So, if we insist on property rights, sana mabigyan din natin ng magandang trabaho. Yung mga informal settlers. Para makakabili na sila ng kanilang o makakarenta sila sa bahay na hindi na sila informal settlers. Malaking problema. Hirap talaga i-solve. Hindi kita matutulungan dyan, Joel.
Hindi ho, kasi malaking problema. Pero tignan nyo ang populasyon natin tumataas. Ang ekonomi natin tumataas din, sabi nyo. Paano naman yung mga tao, di ba? Ngayon, sa kalusugan na lang sa edukasyon, Human Development Index, paano nyo, anong tingin nyo solusyon dito para mataas? Kasi, ironically, Dr. Monsod is an advocate of Human Development Index at yung import liberalization. Kaya gusto ko lang pagtugmain to, no? Hindi ho ako, para wala na masyadong away kasi there could be a continuity kasi will it take 40 years, 30 years to reach a certain stage that we can reach a Human Development Index that is really, kumbaga, maganda-ganda naman para tignan sa Pilipinas kasi competition daw yan eh, di ba? Worldwide, globally.
Pero, yeah. Doc.
Hindi naman contradictory yung yung import liberalization saka yung human development. Kung import liberalization natin, merong emphasis on labor intensive, gaya nga sabi si Joy yata sabi nun, labor intensive tradables, gaganda rin naman yung buhay ng mga informal kung kasali sa development.
Ito thank you Joel. Ito, nasa Zoom si Loli Acosta, isa sa ating mga mga host dito sa mga radio programs natin dito sa DWIC. Ang tinatanong niya, if given the right push and what needs to be done, do you foresee agriculture as the prime mover of the economy o kailangan? Anong pwede daw magawa tungkol dito?
Ano ba yan, Jonathan?
Si Loli Acosta, sabi niya, we are primarily an agricultural country. If given the right push, do you foresee agriculture as the prime mover of the economy?
Sa totoo lang, hindi na mangyayari ang palitan ng agricultural sector natin. Magandang matulungan yung agriculture kung ang produce natin talagang high value na crops. Pero doing agriculture for the sake of agriculture is not going to be useful anymore. I think a country like ours, what we want to emphasize, digital technology, industries that are labor intensive and use the latest advances in digital technology. Maganda sabihin yung agriculture pero sa totoo hindi talaga won't really help the economy that much except for very specific.
Pero nung isang araw pinag-usapan namin kasi yung tungkol sa agricultural modernization and productivity and food security. May mga concerns kasi ang ating mga kababayan na baka magkaroon ng panahon na baka pag hindi natin pinalago yung ating agricultural production, ma-modernize na mabuti ito, baka ang mangyari sa atin, we will be at the mercy of other countries as far as our food security is concerned. So yun ang gusto nilang maintindihan. Kung sa tingin mo, anong kailangan na gawin para itong ating agricultural modernization and productivity programs will be enhanced. Especially since many of our producers claim that they are not given the right financial backing as well as other inputs by government and even by the financial sector. Parang nahihirapan silang mangutang, mas mabuti pang pinapangutang ng iba yung mga real estate. Kaya yung mga agricultural lands natin, nagiging mga subdivision imbis na maging agricultural production zones.
Oo naman, Jonathan. Importante naman ng food security. Ang sinasabi ko lang naman, yung growth ng buong economy will not be driven by that. It will be driven by other sectors.
Industries.
Hindi yata si Dr. Velasco, baka may pwedeng idagdag si Dr. Velasco dito.
Baka mag-react si Dr. Velasco sa ano. Kasi anyway, they have I think a very good program as far as agricultural production and modernization is concerned. Masunod lang 'yon. I think we will be at par with other countries where agriculture remains a major plank of the economy, especially Vietnam and Thailand, for example.
Doc, I don't know what you think of this. You know, agriculture, kailangan nating pagbigyan ng pansin. Dahil ang pagkain, napakalaki ng share sa budget ng average Filipino household. Mahigit 50%. Kung atupagin natin yung agriculture at magmumura at bababa yung share ng food sa budget ng household, napakalaking bagay naman doon sa mga ibang industriya like manufacturing dahil now they can afford for steady wages. Ganun ho yung tingin ng mga ibang tao dyan sa agriculture. I don't know how you look at it. Secondly, gusto ko sana kayo imbitahin, Dr. Remolona, mag-invest tayo sa rubber shoes making dito sa Pilipinas. Bawat Pilipino ata may 2 at least o 3 rubber shoes. Pero lahat po yung rubber shoes na yan, Doc, imported. Nawala na yung local rubber shoes making. Isipin nyo, because of the import liberalization. Rubber shoes. Rubber shoes, napakasimple. We import it, everything. We are 110 million people. So, taon-taon nag-i-import tayo 220 million pairs. Kaya ini-invite ko kayo, mag-invest po tayo. Ako ang industrial partner nyo, kaya ang financier.
Pwede yan, Conrad. Kasi yung mga imported na rubber shoes hindi kaya yung init sa atin Natutunaw yung rubber.
Para po kung sa kinaukulan kung sinong pwedeng makasagot. Kahapon po may ulat ang Philippine Statistics Authority na naging 3.39 million Pinoy ang walang kayod o walang trabaho. Sir, sa pagsasabatas ng 100% foreign ownership of public services, gusto ko lang pong malaman kung paano or ano ang pagtataya o paggalaw ng figura sa mga susunod na panahon. Magkakaroon ng increase sa mga walang trabaho? Kung sino po ang pwedeng makasagot. Salamat po.
Sasagot na. Ikaw, si Doc, ikaw, Doc, do you want to react to the statement of Susan tungkol sa employment, how we can generate more jobs? Do you want to react kung ano pang pwedeng mga sectors na pwedeng pagkunan ng additional jobs for our people? Kasi dumadami ang unemployed or underemployed under the present circumstances as a result of the pandemic and as a result of the other policies that we have as far as labor and employment is concerned.
Tama, kailangan umunlad pa yung economy. Bababa ang unemployment rate, bababa ang underemployment rate. Matutulungan pa natin kung ang pag-unlad ng economy, labor intensive. Kung sinabi ng iba, yun ang that's the usual way, that's the way to do it.
Joe.
Dagdagan ko lang po yan tungkol dyan. Ang kailangan natin, we should trade more. Dagdagan yung exports, hinaan yung importation, sapagkat diinan natin ng tamang polisiya ang pag-develop ng agriculture kasi iyon ang pinaka number one source natin sa ngayon. If we want to trade more, while waiting for foreign investment to improve our manufacturing sector, ang agrikultura ay nandito na at saka pwede na natin bigyan ng tamang pansin, palakihan ng suporta ng gobyerno tungkol dyan. At pangalawa, baka pwede na buksan yung mga sinara ng mga sektor gaya ng mining at saka forest sector. Yan ay may mga responsible investors naman dyan at yan ay magbibigay ng additional job opportunities. At pangalawa, palaganapin na natin yung kabuhayan sa mamamayan. Sa ngayon, sobra na nga ang investment natin sa mga infrastructures, pero sa pananaw namin, ito ay appearance of development lang ito. Sapagkat real development will only happen if people in the communities are actively involved and degenerate activities that generate economic values and invest what they save to generate another economic activities. At kung yan ay mapalaganap natin sa mga kanayunan, sa palagay ko, yan ang tamang sinasabi natin ng real development, not appearance of growth and development. Gaya ng sinasabi kanina ni Conrad, na importante po ito, yung inclusivity, at saka inclusivity should not be just the outcome of any development strategies. It should be part of the process of designing development strategies.
Thank you, Joe. Would you like to react to that, Dr. Remolona?
Yung sana sinabi ko kanina pa yung gusto ni John, tradable goods, emphasize tradable goods. Okay ako doon. In terms of growth, in terms of an economy that's vibrant and that provides jobs, ang experience ng mga successful economies, kailangan ng exports, kailangan ng tradable goods exports. Yan ang diyan nanggagaling ang ng trabaho. Pero sinabi niya kanina ni Joe. Umpisa pa lang sinabi na ni Joe yan.
Napaka-importante po nun. At ang binabanggit din ngayon ng labor sector, yung hindi lang tayo nag-uusap tungkol sa minimum wage. Ang pag-uusapan natin dapat ay yung social benefits. There is a standard for social benefits, Terry. Ano yung nababanggit ninyo tungkol doon originally? Tungkol sa... kasi nagiging problema ng investors ko minsan, yun daw napakaligalig ng ating labor groups. Pag nandito na sila, bigla silang i-strikean, etc. and everything on the issue of minimum wage and other benefits. Meron kayong pinoprograma tungkol sa uniform or unified standard for social benefits?
Una, yung aming universal social benefit, yung kailangan yung mga manggagawa, yung kanilang retirement, kailangan kasama na yun sa sa package. Kasi nga ang nagiging problema, yung mga namumuhunan, pagdating ng 50s o age ng mga manggagawa, pinipilit ng tanggalin eh. Hindi na inaabot yung 60 retirement. Kaya parang hindi na sila na magbabayad ng retirement benefit. Kaya ang aming proposal, sana magkaroon talaga ng universal social benefit ang mga manggagawa. Doon naman sa sinasabi nating bakit palaging hingi ang mga manggagawa ng benepisyo, dahil kasi nga yung problema ng implementation ng minimum wage, yung mga kumpanya alam nila na mayroong minimum wage, pero nagba-violate pa sila ng minimum wage law. Ang proposal namin dyan, dapat pag ang isang kumpanya ay nagkumuha ng permit, kailangan meron na siyang yung compliance sa minimum wage law kasama sa pag-i-issue ng permit. Pag hindi ka compliance, huwag kang issuehan ng business permit. Di ba? Parang sa DNR. Pag ang isang kumpanya kailangan mag-comply ka sa DNR. Para yung pag-violate ng minimum wage ay hindi na ginagawa ng kumpanya. Kaya kasi yung nasa isip ng kumpanya, ang manggagawang Pilipino, magulo eh. Ang tanong dyan, bakit magulo ang manggagawang Pilipino? Sapagkat naman yung kumpanya, hindi naman sumusunod doon sa mga requirement ng labor code. Di ba? Kaya ganun eh.
Okay, thank you very much, Terry. Lito, meron ka ba bang statement o Astro? Hindi kasi agriculture 'yon, no. Yung mga nalilist na mga companies kailangan matignan natin kung nakakatulong ba yung mga yan o nakakagulo.
Yung tanong muna ni Ms. Susan yung tungkol dun sa recent amended na mga Services Act, yung allowing 100% ownership ng foreign, no? It will take time. I think the question is gaano kabilis yung effect, will it add employment? May lag time naman lagi yan, no? Definitely, given that mag-open up pa lang naman yan, magbubukas pa yan, mag-market study pa yan, siguro swerte ka na within 1 year, no? Kung makapag-open up sila, 6 months to 1 year. So it will add employment po talaga. Ngayon, bakit bigla nag-spike up from 2.7 million to 3.2 million yung unemployment, no? Tingin po kasi natin, madami pa ring micro and small medium enterprises na hindi nagbukas sarado no? In agriculture, medyo naapektuhan din dun sa so-called nawalan na rin sila ng incentive to really sell their products dahil dun sa mga smuggling ng mga and importation, no? So it will take time. Kailangan po talagang bigyan din ng pansin ng ating gobyerno. Yung katanungan naman ni Manong Lito, yung isang listed company, hindi na listed yun, Manong na-delist na yun Oo.
Kumita na yung
but definitely we'll address it.
Take a look at it. Yung tungkol. Hindi, ayusin na lang yan. Bago tayo magpatuloy at kay Joe, si Congressman Ongab is about to leave. So, Kong, baka may gusto ka pang sabihin tungkol dito sa Finance and Economy section, pinag-uusapan natin moving forward.
Kong, Jonathan, yes, it is true, as stated earlier, kanina ni Prof. Remolona, na towards consumption at saka services yung ating bulk ng ating economy. So, high time to generate investments para to have more, and I'd say, to have a better accelerated economic development, catalyze development, especially in the regional centers, economic centers, not just in Metro Manila. And with regard to agriculture, balikan lang natin, agriculture is mostly labor intensive. As in some other government projects, infrastructure, no? I would like to be a bit specific. Classroom construction, for example, that's labor intensive at saka long term pa ang effect makakatulong sa ating mga kabataan. So far, yun lang muna yung mga comment ko at maybe next time we'll have more time. Papaalis kasi ako kung Jonathan. And good luck everyone. Kumusta na sa lahat and the team, and stay safe. God bless everyone.
Thank you, Congressman Ongab. Yan principal economic advisor ng incoming Vice President. Joe.
Bago lang akong matapos dito, Dr. Remolona, dalawang bagay lang na gusto ko matanong sa iyo. Gaya ng sinabi kanina ni kasama natin sa labor, merong matunog na advokasya sila sa legally mandated minimum wage. This is a very controversial issue kasi every now and then humingi tayo ng increase pag merong increase ng gasolina. Ngunit, nagkaroon ng isang study ang Philippine Institute for Development Studies, sina Dr. Pacquiao, sinabi nila na contrary to the expectation na pag tinaas mo, legislate mo yung wage ng mga workers, ay hindi nakakatulong pala. At sinasabi nila rito na likely to reduce work hours of average workers. Pangalawa, disadvantageous to the group it wants to help. Pangatlo, mag-decrease ang employment probability of the young and the disadvantaged sectors, and hindi ito makatulong pagtaas ng kanilang kita. Okay, that's one. The other concern is, gaya ng dinidinan ko kanina, if we have to trade more, we have to look at our foreign exchange. Are we competitive at the current rate right now at about 52, 54, gaya ni Astro? Yan ba ay i-recommenda mo as an economist na pwede pa natin babaan pa to an exchange rate to about 54, 56 para lang we can compete and do more trade internationally?
Dr. Remolona, please. Yun daw, competitive daw ba yung ating exchange rate at this time?
Magandang tanong yan. At, mahirap na tanong. Mahina mga economy sa mga tanong na yan na do we have rate? Ang masasabi ko lang, Joe, yung experience ng Korea, Japan, China, nagsimula sila sa mahina ang exchange rate nila, mababa. Ng yen, ng yuan, saka ng won. Pero over, if they set it at the right level in the beginning, it becomes stronger. Lumalakas ang exchange rate. Baliktad tayo di ba? Tayo, simula tayo sa malakas ang peso, tapos over time, humihina ang peso. Kung tama yung development, dapat baliktad. Simula tayo sa mahina ang peso, and then over time, if we do things right, we export, the peso should be stronger. So a sign of having the right exchange rate is an exchange rate that over time becomes stronger along with exports and along with growth in the economy. Pero I think it's the right question. The right question, Joe.
Okay. Are there any more questions? Chu? Lito, wala. Susan, wala na. Astro, would you like to comment to Lito's advice that the PSE should be...
I think Astro should comment doon sa sinabi ng aking colleague na si Conrad na sa PSC merong corruption. Hindi ko alam kung totoo yun I think yung isang tagalon,
Yun lang ang nadinig ko.
Hindi ko meron.
Yun lang ang nadinig ko.
sorry. Gusto ko lang mag-comment ka, Astro, doon sa nadinig ni Conrad na meron daw corruption sa Philippine Stock Exchange. Since tagalon ka, pwede bang mabigyan mo ng liwanag? Can you put a spotlight on this supposed corruption in the PC? Alam mo? That we heard. Yeah.
Yes, Manong Rito. Hindi ko pa naman po naririnig yan. Though may nasasagap tayo konting chismis, pero ang kagandahan lang dito, Manong dito, tuloy pa rin naman yung reforma eh. No, we're growing, the institution is getting stronger. So I'm sure yung check and balance will be much better in the coming days, and hopefully sa next administration, no? Siguro baka maging kandidato ka as one of the independent directors, no? Di ba? Pwede yun. For the and also si Manong Conrad para matigil na yung alleged yung IPO allocations.
Nagpa-file ba ng
Unnecessary. Ang PSC Direct. No. It's a private entity. So, yun naman po. We're getting stronger. Yung mga concerns na yan, it's being addressed naman po. So, definitely the investing public will have much more confidence ngayon, no? Lalo na madami na kaming independent directors. Thank you.
Hindi bang follow-up question si Astro?
Very diplomatic answer. So, are there any more questions to Dr. Remolona and to our reactors?
Jonat, can I ask a
Yes.
follow-up question to Astro?
Yes.
Yung issue na manipis ang stock market natin, ang balita ko, kasi alam mo, di ba sa States, pag lumabas ang earnings report, maganda ang report, tumataas ang stock, ngayon yung report, bumababa ang stock. Ako sa Philippine Stock Exchange, hindi ang stock hindi masyadong gumagalaw. So parang may earnings report bago pa lumabas.
insider trading?
May insider trading nga ba? O?
Mukha lang. Narinig lang ni Doc
Parang ganun lang daw.
Yes, sir. Sir, definitely the liquidity issue should really be addressed, no? Kasi karamihan din naman po ng listed companies are ang liit lang rin ng float. Eh. So hindi rin makapag-participate ang karamihan. I think that should also be addressed. And then second, of course, yung investor education, maliit pa rin po ang percentage ng retail investors, no. Ang pinaka nag-i-influence pa rin talaga yung mga institutional at yung mga institutional na chupitero, sabi nga ni Manong Conrad before, no. And then we're fortunate na medyo malaki pa rin po ang percentage ng foreign funds, no. But not unlike before, no, na talagang grabe yung volatility. Ngayon medyo slowly nag-i-increase na yung local and retail. So, and hopefully ma-address na nga rin po yung so-called percentage ng investing public or float sa public ng mga listed companies. And also, talagang very serious yung effort ng Philippine Stock Exchange, no, in trying to convince the big companies, especially the top 1,000 companies, to list their companies, no. Unfortunately, karamihan din po dito ay mga family-owned. So, they're still trying to fix their financial statements para medyo makapasa rin naman sa standard ng Philippine Stock Exchange.
Meron lang ako reaction kay Dr. Remolona. Sir, if you're referring to insider trading as a factor in our stock market, hindi po totoong may insider trading.
Hindi ho.
At ang prueba ko dyan, wala pang nakukulong eh. Ni isang kaso, wala pang ang na-file tungkol sa insider trading dito sa Pilipinas. Kaya ho, walang insider trading, sir. Baka mali ho yung inyong balita.
Hindi. Hindi na ho insider trading. Sila na mismo ang nag-aayos. Oo. Hindi yun tinitignan na nila mismo. Pero are there any more questions to Dr. Remolona before we let him go? Kasi by the way, he's a visiting professor at the University of Malaysia, and he's also a consultant to the Bank Negara. Yes, because
Akala ko yung MDB Malaysia.
hindi ba yun? Hindi yung MDB Malaysia, mahirap yung maging consultant doon. But anyway, Doc, you might want to just say a few words before we leave this particular forum.
Freeze yung kanyang
Jonat,
Oh, yes.
You should keep doing this, Jonathan.
To say a few words on our recovery efforts and our moving forward responses and measures for the incoming administration, because we are only 30 days away from the election, and we are certain that the incoming administration will be very, very keen on looking at possible measures that can be undertaken in order to immediately underpin the recovery and at the same time make our recovery as sustainable as possible. Wala na? Wala na. Extra na? Hindi na. Paano yan? Hindi na nagsasalita si Ellie? Hindi na. Okay na. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Remolo. Thank you very much, our panel. Thank you, Astro. Thank you, Conrad, Lito, Joe, and Kateri, Juchay, and Susan for being with us. Si Joel, ano yan? Bahala na si ano dyan. Oo. Rolly Estebillo sa kanya. But anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for being with us. We have some food dito sa conference room. Pansit lang, pansit. Thank you, thank you.
Dapat pala yung output mo dito, yun ang pwedeng national security plan.
Ibibigay natin kay Bong.